Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Hey, look at all these cool murals down here. Hope nothing horrible happens to us. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We are not going to be talking about the news from the week. Instead, we're just going to be talking about Tears of the Kingdom this whole time. It seemed right. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing incredible. I'm doing amazing. Tears of the Kingdom is in our life.
Yes.
It is here.
Yes.
And I'm super excited to talk about it. So excited that we just figured
We're breaking the format.
Yeah, we'll do the news on Thursday.
Because look, I'm sure something happened this week, but like I feel like I was just like blinders up all Tears of the Kingdom all the time.
Yeah, it just felt like, okay, we would talk about it and what we've been playing, and then we were going to talk about like Nintendo's financial results.
Yeah, who cares?
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, we'll care on Thursday.
Uh-huh.
But as of today, as of right now, it's I mean, I have been going to bed later and later, and then stayed awake in bed later and later thinking about this game.
Yes.
I'm at work during the day being like, this isn't Tears of the Kingdom.
It's a tough comparison to other parts of my life, for sure.
Absolutely. We have all become that sad Australian man on the train who just wants to get home so he can play Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
I mean, we've all become this. So that's what we're talking about today. We will be doing news. I don't know why I think that people need to be comforted so much. It's not that different. If you would like to support us, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society. There you can check out various rewards for supporting us at the 8 and 16-bit tiers, like our miniseries NCS Detective Club, where we are watching the great television series, the great detective television series, and talking about them, giving you a blow-by-blow breakdown, a clue-by-clue breakdown. I can't believe it took us 5 months to land on a clue-by-clue breakdown. Our most recent episode is about Marple. It is available now. It's almost 4 hours long, Mark.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And we recently held a poll to determine what the next miniseries is going to be, because NCS Detective Club is wrapping up in June, and patrons of any level were able to vote on that poll. We had a three-way tie. So Patrick and I have a little bit of work to do to figure out how exactly we're going to break that tie. But on Thursday, we will be announcing the results.
But we have nothing to announce at this time.
That's right.
We're taking a very Nintendo approach to this. We have nothing to announce at this time. We do have a Discord, though. We can announce that. It's not an announcement. We've had it for like a year. If you would like to get in and talk about all of your experiences with Tears of the Kingdom, with anything else in the world of Nintendo, all you got to do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And if you are worried about, maybe people saying too much about their experiences with Tears of the Kingdom, we do have a couple different channels for Zelda chat in there. So if you want to go in there and mute the spoiler channel, you can. If you even want to mute the non-spoiler channel,
that's what I've done.
Mark muted them both.
I'm just trying to avoid like anything, even innocently, that might kind of like reveal more than I want to know about the game right now.
Right. And I think we're going to go into our conversation here in a minute with that same sort of spirit. Obviously, we're going to talk about things that we encountered and like a couple different like story beats, but we're both very early in the game. Mark and I both work full-time jobs. We didn't get the game early or anything like that, so we are early days there.
Yeah, I would say I think at this point maybe 15, 14 hours in.
Which is still incredible for one weekend.
Yeah,
yes.
But it feels like I'm just barely at the beginning of the game, which is so wild to think, being like 14 hours in. But yeah, I think, to my mind, the way to couch this is like, I think we're going to be pretty just talking about everything that we encountered in those 15 hours, like not going out of our way to spoil anything, but I think this will only be fun if we just share,
if
what
we
we've
just speak
seen.
freely. Yeah. I think so too. When I'm going to play us a section break so we can just get into talking.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So first, I just wanna like live in that moment before the game came out for just
Yes.
one last little hang. You and I had a great conversation about everything that we loved, not everything, a lot of things that we loved about the Zelda series, for our Thursday episode, which dropped. I think concurrently with reviews for Tears of the Kingdom, hitting like all the major publications, and seemingly the uh, the diagnosis was too good to be true, right? Like, didn't it kind of seem like were you seeing these review scores coming in?
I did. I looked at review scores. I looked at like Open Critic
Mhm.
and was like, okay, universal acclaim, and that's where I dropped out.
Right.
For whatever reason, I generally am not. I mean, famously for early listeners of the show, we asked people to write in and tell us spoilers
For Split,
for
yes,
Split.
for the M Night Shyamalan movie Split.
Yeah, that's right, because neither of us were going to see it.
But then we saw it together.
Did we see Split together?
Yes, we saw Split together.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But like I don't really generally
It
speaking.
was the other one. It was like Glass, the sequel
yeah,
that
yeah.
we didn't see.
Okay, got it.
And I think we asked for spoilers for that too, but then didn't really follow up on it, so no one wrote in.
Um, I generally don't care about spoilers.
Yeah.
Like, but for this, for whatever reason, I have just like wanted, and actually, I think I do know the reason. Before the game was released, I've talked about it on the show. I was nervous that the game wouldn't have that much new to show us
Sure.
because it's set in the same Hyrule. And one of the things that I loved about Breath of the Wild and why it was one of my favorite gameplay, maybe my favorite gameplay experience of all time, was the sense of discovery. And once like I had opened up all the areas of the map and had done all the shrines and all that kind of stuff, the game was still fun, but it lost that like excitement for me.
Right. And that, I mean, that is still like 80 hours into the game.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but that's what I was worried about with Tears of the Kingdom, is that because some of it like seemed the same, that I needed to go on like as much of blackout as possible,
Right.
because I was worried that without that, the game would kind of be like, that sense of discovery would kind of be like ruined for me.
Right. Well, and like if you Nintendo had done or they were doing a treehouse starting at 6:45 the evening that
Which I did not watch.
Mark didn't watch it at all. I tuned into it at one point because my plans for the evening were canceled, and I was like, oh great, I can just sit at my Switch and like hit open game until it works. But I was like, I'm just gonna check in on this. And Treehouse, like they were showing some things that like I didn't stay long enough to like get the context. But like I saw like a boss health bar, and I was like, I don't want to see this. Like I want to be surprised by these things. So like I think by the time we were leading up to like the hours before release, Nintendo was being a little bit more loosey goosey with like what they're putting out there. What's been nice in the sort of weekend after is that what people are sharing like online and on social media and stuff is not really spoiler or story stuff or even really like encounter related at all. It's all just like what crazy things people have been building.
Yeah.
And here's a spoiler. I'm not going to build any of that crazy stuff. I'm going to build nice normal things.
It reminds me very much of Animal Crossing.
Yes.
My experience with Animal Crossing,
Yes.
where it was like I would see because I feel like you and Sarah built like a really cool island. And
Thank you with the Hollywood Bowl in the northwest corner.
Yeah,
Yep.
like I thought it was really cool, but you would see what other people did online, and my island, I never took the time or had any interest in making like a really intricate design.
Yeah.
And that has been my Tears of the Kingdom experience as well. Like some of the things that people are creating are so cool, and like I can't believe some of it's also like, I think what is nice is we see all the really cool stuff,
Yeah.
but you also see the people who are playing like me, where it's like they're taking a sledgehammer to every problem, where it's just like, how can I solve this?
Right.
And that's really fun to see as well,
Yes.
where it's just like, people posting these crazy contraptions they build that are like really ugly or, like just barely holding together, but are using it to solve puzzles. Because that's how I have been approaching it. Is like,
totally.
what like ugly mess can I put together that will get me
Yes.
from A to B?
Right. And then you're like, why did I even have that other rocket taped to this thing? Just made me spin faster. But so yeah, it's with like living in that like kind of spoiler free space. has been sort of easy to maintain for me. Like I haven't really changed my social media like intake at all. Because again, like that's not what people want to share. People want to share the crazy things that they're building, which is also just like a great like Nintendo has cracked this thing again of like like you say, it's the Animal Crossing thing of like, oh yeah, people showing off things that only happen in their game. Um, it's a genuine expression that people are sharing. It's
which
so cool.
which is so much fun because that was one of the highlights of the Breath of the Wild experience. Was
Yes.
like you had the game itself, but then you had the social experience
Yes.
of talking to other people and sharing your experiences and them not being the same, or them finding an NPC that you haven't run into yet, or like some crazy thing out in the world. And to have that be happening again is like, it makes me so excited because that's what I wanted out of this game.
Yeah. I forget who said it. It might have been someone over on IGN back when Breath of the Wild came out that talking to people after like a week of playing Breath of the Wild was like coming back from freshman year of college, like coming back to your hometown for the summer, and like people having like different interests in food and like wearing different outfits, and like the person who's studying abroad has like a weird accent now, and you're like, what have you been up to the last 12 months? And like in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild is the same way too, where it's like, where did you get this crazy set of armor? You know, why do you have these weapons? Why are you making food out of this kind of stuff? It's just a very it ends up being like a very personal experience, and that's a cool thing for people to share.
One thing I feel like we should talk about in like the pre-release
Yes.
of it all was, like on last Thursday, we did an episode all about the things we love about Zelda and all the Zelda games. And one thing that has been really fun in the build up to Tears of the Kingdom is I feel like so everybody's been having this collective celebration
Yes.
of Zelda leading up to this moment.
Right. You and I are generally like positive guys on this show. And you know, sometimes when I'm like, yeah, we're doing just like a list of our favorite things, I'm like, is this us being too positive or like too saccharine about something? But it was like sliding right into the niche of like everyone feels good about Zelda in this moment.
And it was so much fun. And so to have Tears of the Kingdom come out and to be fun,
yes,
is just kind of like the cherry on top.
Yeah. Your analogy leading up to the release was that it was like the feeling before Rise of Skywalker came out.
Man, that was such a good time to be a Star Wars fan.
It was
Everybody was feeling
good.
The Mandalorian had just come out. Baby Yoda, like
Baby Yoda was adorable. We were like, no one had really soured on Mandalorian yet, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, Star Wars is just coming up. Like it's just Jedi Fallen Order, great. Like everything feels good about Star Wars right now.
And then Rise of Skywalker
and then
came
Rise
out,
of Skywalker
and it was
happened,
like, oof, ouch, gut punch.
Yes.
And so, to have it felt a little bit like deja vu with Tears of the Kingdom, where everybody was feeling really good about Zelda, and then was Tears of the Kingdom going to be good? I don't know that we ever really had a doubt.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it does feel like, how could it, like the Zelda team, I was gonna say they don't miss, but like they make games that aren't as good as other ones. But like, it's also like curious. Zelda games sometimes review very well, and then like get into players' hands and like.
Well, and it wasn't even really enough, and this is what's so crazy, for Tears of the Kingdom to be good.
Yes.
Because it was being compared to Breath of the Wild.
Right.
And so
one of the greatest games of all time.
And there was, even after, Aonuma's gameplay, like there was just a lot of questions. Yes. I had questions. I talked about it on this show of like, what is this? Is it just like Breath of the Wild with some additional abilities, and is that enough? And I think the like my first couple of 15 hours with the game really took me on like a whole journey with how I feel about Tears of the Kingdom. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, okay. Before we get to like what those 15-ish hours are actually like, let's talk a little bit about how we got the game itself, and just like our experience there. I think yours is simpler than mine. So why don't you go?
Yeah,
first?
I mean, I just pre-ordered it digitally, and then I wasn't able to start right at 9, but at like 10 o'clock on Thursday night, because being on the West Coast, it unlocked for us a few hours before midnight on when it was midnight on the East Coast. You get what
Right.
I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, we all get it.
Yeah. And so yeah, played for like a few hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours that first night, and then that was pretty much it. Like that was my
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild acquisition process. What about you?
So my acquisition process for the game, I also got it digitally, pre-ordered it with one of those vouchers. So I was being a good little voucher boy. Although the other game that I bought with the voucher is Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, and I have turned that on once to watch the opening cinematic, and that's it.
Yeah,
So
mine was Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. And I
Yeah.
turned it on, played it for maybe 10 minutes, and I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to play this again.
It's, did we save $30 or did we spend an extra 30? Like, it's one or the other. Who knows? But so I was on my Switch at 9 o'clock, literally jamming on the A button to try and get it to load up the game, and at about like 9:01 it finally clicked over. And Mark, I don't know if you had the pleasure of seeing this like at 10 o'clock, but just people popping on like all the time to see it. It's so cool to see like our friend count of people who are, first of all, just way more people playing Switch now than were 5 days ago. And so many of them, not all, some people still grinding away at Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but so many of them playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen as many of my like Switch friends online concurrently as I did on Thursday night.
Yeah, we've got a fair number of Switch friends because listeners to the show can.
Yeah, our friend code is in the show notes.
And I love seeing that. So please add us on there. But like we've got like over 200 friends at this point. And I saw like 52 people on at one point.
Wild.
And just like that's nuts. It's so many. It makes me think everyone in the world is playing this game, and I know that's not true in the strictest sense, but boy, it sure feels like it. But so I played, maybe for like 2 hours or so, and then was like, okay, I have to work tomorrow. I got to stop. But I had plans the next morning to meet up with previous guests on the show, Connor and Jeremy, to get burritos in the morning and then walk over to the Best Buy because they had pre-ordered their games there. And I had pre-ordered my Tears of the Kingdom amiibo and the Pro Controller, all from that same Best Buy. And we were joined by Matt Apodaca and Cody Ziegler, which was just like weird and surreal. Like I know Matt a little bit. I'd never met Cody before. It was very cool to go to Best Buy with those guys and pick up the game. But there was a line outside of Best Buy before it opened of people with pre-orders, people without pre-orders. And by the time everyone got their stuff and were like able to leave, there was a line that stretched all the way across the front of the Best Buy and like curled around the back.
So crazy. It's like when we bought our Switch.
It was like when we bought our Switches. Yeah.
That's so fun. That's so fun.
It was, and it's such like a fun, cool vibe where like everyone was just excited, and like it reminded me that there's like a flavor of gamer who just plays Zelda, right? Like that, like their dad introduced them to it, or whatever it is, or just play Breath of the Wild, right? That like a release of a new game like this is a monumental thing that hits the core of video game people, but also hits like all these other tendrils, right? Where people are like, I just wait for Zelda to come out because I know it's going to be good. I know it's going to be polished. I know it's going to be a complete experience that I can play for months. And like, that's what the vibe of that line was. A lot of cool people very excited to dig into this game. And so we were hanging out outside the Best Buy because they were looking for Matt's copy of the game that they had like he had reserved one, and they wanted to make sure they were giving him the one with like the right sticker on it. Anyway, it was taking forever. And people would come out of the store and be like, hey, did you get it? Or like high five us. Like everyone is just like ready to be excited to play this game.
Yeah, man. And that's it is really rare for there to be like a moment like that. This just kind of like collective celebration of, this new thing that we're all going to get to experience together.
Yeah. And like I'm sure there have been other like game releases like this since the pandemic, but this is the first one that sort of like hit my circle, where like for whatever reason, waiting and picking it up later in the day, like that wasn't good enough. You need to be there when the store opened.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be like checking the eShop within an hour of it being released. Um, it feels like not even the Pokemon fervor is like the same as that. And maybe I'm wrong because like I'm not showing up to the store at that time. But yeah, like you would see videos of people in line outside of GameStop or whatever. So it's just a cool little bit of like video game culture that only Nintendo really seems to be able to command. Um, Man, remember when the classic editions were coming out,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was a nightmare. Anyway, we don't need to relive nightmares. We've talked pre-release. We've talked how we secure these things. By the way, I just want to say the Pro controller. This is the first time I've ever gotten a Pro controller after my initial one on launch day. So I've been using that one controller for a very long time. I've switched out, Joy Cons and whatever. But my old Pro controller is showing its age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like feels old, is dirty in a way that controllers get, where you're like, how do I clean the thumbstick? It's like kind of rubbery. And it's just so cool to have this like designated controller for it. I've not played anything else with it yet. I assume that I will, and it'll just become a regular controller. But like the one handle is white, the other handle is black, and then it's got that like black and gold, sort of like Zonai art and like circles and stuff on it. It's very cool, and I love picking it up. Okay, let's talk about the game. The game itself. Mark, first impressions turning on the game.
Yeah, so it starts with kind of the same presentation style as Breath of the Wild, where it's really minimalist. It's like
Mhm.
tiny text on a black screen.
And no title screen, right? Like,
Right.
you'll get a title screen when you start it up later. The first time you turn it on, it knows you're starting a new game,
Uh-huh.
and just tiny text on a black screen, being like "Tears of the Kingdom," and what other?
It's just like Nintendo Presents.
Yeah, there we go.
And then it's like Nintendo Presents, and there's like a little interlude, and
Yep.
then Tears of the Kingdom. Or maybe I'm making that up. Maybe it's all just back to back. I can't remember
I
exactly
can't
how it plays
remember
out.
either. I mean, I was so like amped as it was
Yeah.
starting that I was just like,
Well, and it starts so different from Breath of the Wild.
and
Well,
kind of any other Zelda game, really.
yeah. Yeah. It throws you right into kind of like, one of those a little bit of a cutscene, a little bit of a walking sequence
Yeah,
where, you are
the
with
old Uncharted special. Yeah.
That's right. You're Link and Zelda are exploring this chasm that is opened up underneath Hyrule Castle. It takes place shortly after Breath of the Wild.
And you're controlling a Link that looks like he could be the Link that you were controlling at the end of Breath of the Wild. He's got full hearts. He's got full stamina. I forget what he's wearing.
I can't remember either. Maybe just his regular
Maybe
Breath of
just
the
the
Wild
high.
tunic.
Oh yeah,
type thing.
it might be the champion's tunic. And it has the Master Sword. And you can't like access any of his like abilities or items or whatever. But that's not what this moment is about. This moment is just about you looking the right way
Yeah.
to be post game Link.
Yep.
And Link and Zelda happen upon some murals that sort of give the sort of Wind Waker esque introduction of like their like you know the moment from the beginning of Wind Waker. The music is great, and it's just like, here's what happened.
Yeah.
Here's why the Great Sea like swallowed Hyrule. And this is more like Zelda decoding what's happening, and you're walking around as this is going on, and it's all about this wizard, or it's Ganondorf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like summoning the power, and raising an army against Hyrule. And so like it's not really like usable information. I don't know, what did you make of this little like lore dump here?
Yeah, I feel like the important part is that the murals that are underneath that she's like looking at are, I think, like kind of telling the origin of Hyrule. It's like the first time
Right.
that any of this happened.
Which is
And
then also the first time we see like Zonai characters.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was like it's confirming stuff that she had heard before, but that was more like legend.
Right.
And it was like, oh, okay, here's almost like the source of these stories.
Right. Raru, or we probably don't know his name yet.
I don't think we know his name
yet. But yeah, so we get Ganon, we get these Zonai guys, and the first king of Hyrule, like that's sort of the waters that we're dealing with here. And then Link and Zelda just like descend deeper and deeper and deeper into this cave.
Yeah, there's also, what do they call it? I can't remember. It's
gloom.
Yes, there's also gloom coming up out of the cave. That they're kind of like investigating. One of the things with the murals is there's a lot of murals, and then there's part of the mural that can't be seen because it's obstructed by.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Chekhov's obscured mural, which I'm sure will come into play like at the end of the game or something.
Oh man, I'm so, even though we're talking about it now, I'm going to have forgotten about it by the time I get to it in the game.
But yeah, so they just continue going down, and that's where we see a lot of just the sequence that we have seen from the beginning that we knew that this game was coming, from the E3 2019 reveal trailer, where there's like a mummy that is in the center of this room with some like green and blue magic kind of swirling around it, and an arm that is pressing into its chest,
as though holding it in place.
Yeah.
And mummy is canonically what they call the thing. They're like, it's a mummy of some kind, which great, thank you, just calling it like you see it. That's how we see it too. And oops, it like sees them.
Yeah, when like Link and Zelda walk in, the arm, like as soon as they walk in, whatever magic was holding the arm in place fails, and it disappears. So the arm falls, and at that point, like the mummy awakens again, like we saw in the trailer.
Yeah, and this is then like gloom sort of like shoots out to attack Zelda. Link dutifully steps in front, wields the Master Sword, which just gets consumed by this evil gunk that's flying through the air. It grabs the sword, grabs his arm, basically breaking all of the arms or all the bones in Link's arm and hand. Do we think broke all the bones?
Did he break the bones, or did he just like disintegrate it all?
May have just disintegrated them.
Yeah. Also when the arm like falls off of the mummy, this stone falls onto the ground, and Zelda picks it up and then is like holding on to it when all of this happens.
Right. And then, this all plays out again, like you say, like we've seen in the trailers. Zelda disappears into a chasm. Link tries to grab her, does not succeed. She is falling, but then turns into a ball of light and disappears. And
Link is grabbed by a mysterious like hand or force,
right,
and pulled back, and then that's kind of like the end of that scene. And then Link wakes up on the Great Sky Island, and we're off to the races.
Right, and he's visited by a projection or a ghost or who knows what. This is where we meet Raru, who is a Zonai and the first king of Hyrule.
And Link is now sporting his arm.
Link is now, and I love that this sort of thing is not explained at all, where he's just like, that arm used to belong to me. Anyway. What?
Well, he's a ghost now. I guess he doesn't have any use for it.
But does he have like other parts of his body that are also magical?
Well, maybe
why was his arm magical?
I don't know. I guess it was the arm that was holding the mummy into place.
That's my read as well.
But okay, so, this opening is very different from Breath of the Wild, which is just like Link wakes up in goo and you're off to the races, right? There's like so little preamble to Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom has a little more setup. How are you feeling through all of this? It's not that long of a sequence.
It's not that long of a sequence, but there definitely was a part where I was like, I would like to just play this game. But I also appreciate that, like, if they just started me in the Sky Island, I would be like, I would have questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if those questions would have been bad.
Well,
how are you feeling?
I felt like the comparison and it's not just because Link's arm gets chopped off, but I've been thinking a lot of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Where, with Star Wars, again, like Breath of the Wild, the first Star Wars movie, they didn't need a lot of preamble, right? You're just like thrust into the world, you figure it out, but then with Empire Strikes Back, there is a lot more, not in a bad way, but just table setting,
Yeah.
where they have to explain the state of the world and where everybody is, and kind of like what is the thrust of this movie, because it's different from the thrust of
Right.
the first movie.
Right.
Um,
Well, everything in the first movie still being true.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
Because like in Breath of the Wild, Link is the player. He has lost his memory. He's been asleep for 100 years, so he's experiencing everything for the first time again.
Right.
In Tears of the Kingdom, that is not true. Link is a known like quantity.
He's like a celebrity.
He's a
Everyone
hero in
everyone is
Hyrule.
like, wait, you're Link, right?
And so there has to be a reason and a way to like explain the changes
Right.
in like the state of the world. And so
Well, and I do think there's a neat bit of like character to player like marriage there, because like one of the things that's exciting about Breath of the Wild, you're approaching it brand new, so is Link, right? Like you have that sort of same amnesiac quality as he does. But what's neat about Tears of the Kingdom is that like you have that familiarity. Link has that familiarity, and what you're experiencing is like, why is this different? How is this different? Why have these things changed? Why don't I have access to the same weapons I had before? And like I've got to build my own stuff. It's the same sort of scrappiness that the character is going through. The player is also sort of adapting that same perspective.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that's totally true. That both Link matches your experience in both like games.
Although I wonder what it's like to be playing Tears of the Kingdom without having played Breath of the Wild. Yeah. Which I'm never going to be one of those people that's like, oh, you really gotta play both, or you really have to like watch both things. I always think people have enough, are smart enough, and movies and games and TV shows give enough context that like you're not going to be lost. You'll be fine. But it's just a richer experience for having
But you're right. I mean, they have made some changes that help. Like if you're only playing Tears of the Kingdom, then they have these new like character biography type things that will catch you up on, that you can read to like catch up on the history and all that kind of stuff. So opening over, and then you're on the Great Sky Island, which functions really similar to the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild.
I like it keeping the naming convention of the Great Blank.
You're introduced to some of your new powers, and you're introduced to the
you got to earn these powers by going to shrines.
So again, very similar to Breath of the Wild. What did you think of? Okay, so this was my experience where I played on Thursday night, like 2 or 3 hours, and I in that time did not make it off the Great Sky Island. You get the Ultra Hand really early, which is the ability that you use to build things. And
also just pick stuff up, I think, is another important component of that.
And so you get that one, like that's the first one that you get. And I think I got that, and I got Fuse.
This is my experience as well, because there is a little bit of a natural break here, because those two come pretty rapidly on top of each other, and like after they introduce Ultra Hand, then it's just sort of like a fun little like obstacle course of like get across this river, get through these like rail sections, and that's like feels like fun and intuitive. So frequently this game tricks you into thinking you're a genius, and it's almost all around Ultra Hand, right? And they give you a lot of those moments early on.
Yeah, and that was so I was really my first Thursday night, I did the opening, I did a couple of shrines on the Great Sky Island, was getting used to Ultra Hand, because I'm not a crafting person in video games. I was not looking forward to Ultra Hand. I was kind of dreading, this is what this game is based around. Am I going to enjoy this?
Right.
And in the first couple hours, the answer was no. I did not particularly enjoy it, because for me, the learning curve of like how to rotate things the right way so you can line it up the way you want it to. That part was like, I'm not enjoying this. So I left Thursday night. I was like, okay, that was interesting, but I'm not really sold on this. But it wasn't until like after I'd put the game down and was like doing other, like getting ready for bed, lying in bed, and I realized that my mind kept going back to the game. And like how I could be using Ultra Hand differently, where I should be going next. Like, because where I left it, there were some constructs down there for that I could go attack, or I could like head off in this other direction. And that's when I realized the game had its hooks in me,
Yeah.
and I was excited to play more. But I stepped away from the first 3 hours being like, I don't know about this.
Well, and some of that is like letting you experiment, right? Is in like a safe space, and maybe that ends up like taking a little while, or you had to like run those cycles through your brain while you're not playing the game to like get back to it and feel like you are engaged in what the game is offering.
Yeah, and it's kind of like when I don't watch or read Shakespeare very often. And so when I go
Yeah.
to see like I remember when we
You
went
have to rewire your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when we went to Shakespeare in the park, and the first, like 20 minutes you have to kind of get back into the groove of listening to Shakespeare. And I felt that way with Tears of the Kingdom, where it was like I had to turn off my like video game hoarder mentality, and where I'm like, I want to explore every nook and cranny of the Great Skyline because I'm so worried I'm going to miss something, and just kind of like take a breath and just be like, of the wild, and realize, hey,
no need to shed tears of the kingdom.
That's not the optimal.
That's not what this is.
That's not the optimal way to play this game. Like, you don't have to like min-max Tears of the Kingdom.
Right. Well, because if there is a solution to a problem, it's in the world, and the world will provide it to you. Or rather, you will have to synthesize it from what is in the world. And it's always there.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of the ways that I think this game improves on the sort of resource scarcity and like durability issues in Breath of the Wild, where a frustrating thing about Breath of the Wild is you can encounter a very powerful weapon, and you're like, this weapon rules. I got this guardian sword from inside a shrine. I never want this thing to run out. And then you're sad when it breaks. But that kind of, there is no super powerful weapon that you pick up in Tears of the Kingdom because it's all just two things glued together.
Right.
So like the fuse mechanic really encourages this anti-horde mentality where you're just like, no, get the thing, use the thing, let the thing go.
Yeah, I have encountered like most of the weapons, you do get better weapon. And again, I'm only 15 hours in, so who knows what the game holds? You know what I mean?
Truly.
But so far, I'm just seeing a lot of like rusty broadswords.
Yep.
There's not like a weapon so far that I'm like, and because you're so right, in Breath of the Wild, you would get a really great weapon, and you would not use it. It would just be in your inventory. And
it'd be like,
wasting
I'm gonna
away.
save this thing until the next time two guardians are chasing me.
But now it's like I've basically just got garbage weapons. And the thing that makes them better is fusing.
Right. There's a boulder, there's a big spiky metal ball, there's a TNT barrel that I'm gonna attach to a stick and then throw it. Like it truly is like it knows, and you just have to like also learn it too, that like the environment provides.
And I'm still kind of like internalizing that
it's hard.
with Fuse, because it's so different. I'm not a crafter in video games, so it's such a different way for me to think. But slowly, like at least for me, like I begin to do it, and I fuse two things together, and you're like, and some of the shrines kind of like step you into it. And that is one thing I'll say, is that it is worthwhile in my experience to follow the story for a little bit, because once you get off the Great Sky Island, you can start doing stuff on Hyrule. You have the option to go anywhere, but there's a lot of benefit to my mind of like following where that game is asking you to go, because it is well tutorialized that way, where you will run into familiar characters.
Well, and it's not just well tutorialized in that like it teaches you how to use everything, but like unlike Breath of the Wild, once you get off the Great Plateau or Great Sky Island, there are still like crucial like game defining tools that you don't have yet. And a chief among them for me, because I had such a hard time playing this game without the paraglider.
I had a momentary panic attack when I was like in Hyrule and I didn't have it yet.
And
I'm like, I've got to get this thing.
And like you have to do like a couple beats of this of like the main story that it is marching you towards in order to get this thing. And like it doesn't matter how much you're like, no, I'm just gonna go whichever way I want, like how strong that drive is. Do the story until you get the paraglider. Because like then the game becomes itself, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not really like actualized before that.
But for me, it was helpful to like keep going that direction, which I didn't do initially. You know, like I did that first story beat, got the paraglider, and then the one of the sky towers opens up, and anytime, and this was one of the great things about Breath of the Wild, and is also true for Tears of the Kingdom. Thank goodness, is anytime you get a good view of the world, of the
Yes.
broader world, you are immediately drawn to something, and you're like, oh, I gotta go over there.
I gotta.
I know that I was
gotta get
headed
over
this
there.
other direction, but I've
But
got to
look
see
at
what
that thing.
is.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and
And sometimes it's just a shrine.
yeah,
but,
sometimes
like-
it's just trying. But yeah, so like I messed around with like a couple of other things, and I was like, do you know what? I'm not actually ready for this yet. And I continued to follow the story. And I'm glad I did, because there's like a couple of shrines that teach you, like, you have to get a little bit further, but it's not teaching you. It's just like reminding you, hey, you can do this. Like, you can fuse something to your shield, and it has utility in this world.
Yes.
Like it'll make this easier for you. And I needed that kick in the pants. I needed that like reminder that fuse was a thing that I should be paying more attention to, because the game has so many systems and things you could pay attention to, that having that thing where it's like, oh yeah, I haven't been using fuse for a while, I got to start doing that
Well,
again.
and like this is the important thing about how Tears of the Kingdom is not just Breath of the Wild with a new set of powers, right? Because one of the things that's so compelling about Breath of the Wild is that the world is sort of built around Link's core four abilities. And even though this is the same world, it's still built around these different core four abilities and things that Link can only do in this game that he couldn't do in the previous. And that's all four of those abilities, with maybe the recall being the sort of like least kind of integral to the world, but still being very cool. And I'm convinced that there will be moments where I'm like, oh yeah, recall is the most important one of these things. But like, yeah, it feels like the world is built around Ultra Hand, is built around Fuse, is built around Ascend.
Well, one of the things that's been so funny for me and my experience with Tears of the Kingdom is leading up to Tears to the release of the game, I was so worried that because it was the same Hyrule,
Right.
I was gonna
Right.
be like bored with it or whatever. But I haven't played Breath of the Wild since my first experience with that game. I don't remember the details of
Oh, yeah.
Hyrule. Like,
Yeah.
I remember the general, like,
Yes.
this is where the Rhinos live. This thing is in this general quadrant of the map. But
Which
the
is still
details-
huge, by the way.
the details are just
Yeah.
totally, like, lost on me. And so I think you're right. I think that there are probably a ton of changes to Hyrule that were made in order to, like, accommodate these new abilities. Like, like caves or more overhangs in certain areas.
Yeah.
So you can use the what is it?
Ascend.
Ascend. But unless somebody was showing me a side by side comparison, I have no memory of the changes. Like, I wouldn't
Right.
clock the changes that they've made.
Right. But there are some places where like the changes are obvious, right? Like the approach to where Hyrule Castle was. Now there's like a little encampment there, and that's where like the survivors, since the castle was lifted into the sky, and that's where like your first little bits of story beat play out there as you're reunited with characters from Breath of the Wild. But like that feels wholly, even though it's old characters, it feels wholly like new and different.
And I haven't been there yet, but in the you have NPCs talking about like what's happened to Kakariko Village and
Yep.
like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it is so wild to me that to be 15 hours into this game and truly be scratching the surface. Whereas with other games, like 15 hours in, a lot of times I'm like, I think I'm done. Like I've had
Yeah,
my
totally.
experience with
Yes.
this game.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of those other systems, some of those like little bits that we have like truly just, as you say, scratch the surface of. And anytime we use that phrase, scratch the surface, I think about the depths and the tiny little bit that I've experienced in the depths, and just what that implies for like the rest of my experience with this game. So the depth, there are holes that have opened up all over Hyrule that lead down a seemingly how far down do you think this is? Like, give it to me in feet. How many feet? Stories? Like 20 stories, 30
Yeah,
stories
it
down?
seems like hundreds, thousand, like 1,000 feet. Like
Yes.
you drop deep.
Like a mile
Uh huh.
below the surface of Hyrule, there is a dark world that has like a few random travelers in it, but no settlements, and it's full of monsters and gloom.
I've only gone down one, and
Me
that was
too.
one of the things I did the first Sky Tower,
Yeah.
and I saw Sky Island that I wanted to go to because I've been really focused on shrines because I want more hearts and I want more stamina. So I've been
Yeah.
really
Same.
focused on like when I see a shrine, I'm like I'm gonna go check it out. So there was one on a Sky Island that I wanted to check out, and then right underneath it was a crevasse, and so I was like I am going to go down there, and that was it, the first time you go into one is such a cool experience because it's dark.
Yep.
You can't see anything. There are these new plants that emit a little bit of light if you
Yeah.
hit
The
them, or if you like shoot them.
glow
Yeah,
blossom,
bright
something like
bloom or
that.
like
Bright
bright
bloom. There we
blossom
go.
or something like that. And so I get down into like one of these. You can't really see anything. Just some stuff glowing in the distance,
Yep.
and you're shooting an arrow that you've fused with like bright bloom
Oh,
or whatever it is.
I just throw them.
Oh, that's smart. I haven't even thought to just throw
Yeah,
them.
you can just throw
I
'em.
shoot him with an arrow so that way I can go far.
Smart.
And then and so then I'm like
See, I've got like 90 of them, so I'm just tossing them everywhere.
So I like have this like I'm shooting this arrow into the darkness. It lands
So
and
cool.
it illuminates this area around it, and I'm like, oh crap, this is like scary. And so I keep like going, and there are some monsters that I encounter, and I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Like I am so ill prepared, and I fast traveled out of there so quickly.
Right. Well, there's also, because of the gloom, any damage that you take can't be healed until you leave the depths. The depth is that right?
I can't remember what they call it, but yeah.
Yeah. So like it's a hard mode, right? Like it's a no healing mode. And I know there are like you can make like some potions and stuff to like counteract some of the gloom or whatever. But like it is clearly some like next level stuff where it's like, okay, once I've gotten all big and bad on the surface, then I'm going to venture into the world underneath, and it's gonna roll me. Because like in addition to it being hard, it is just like a genuinely scary environment.
Yeah.
It's dark, and like I guess there are like formations of earth, but it's nothing as comforting as like trees and hills and deserts and lakes. It's like there are weird statues down there, and almost like little bits of like wholly ruined architecture where like if there were people down there, they're so far lost to the monsters that they may as well have never existed, you know? It's just like it is a scary place down there.
Yeah, it's really I'm excited to explore it more. I'm just not ready
Yeah.
to do it yet.
Also, it's the size of Hyrule.
What do you think of the Sky Island? So, you come down from the Great Sky Island,
Yeah.
but there are all of these, other islands around that there are different ways that you can get to them.
I'll be honest, I've had a hard time accessing them.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I'm up there pretty regularly, just like checking out like shrines and
Just
stuff
like
like that.
just like seeing what's going
Just
on.
like seeing because
So how are you getting there mostly? Because like every now and then I will see a like falling piece of rock, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, I will reverse you and ride you up to the top, and that's usually not enough to like get me close to one.
Oh yeah, I have not done that. What I have done is used like the sky towers,
Yeah,
and so you like do a sky tower and
that launches you high enough to get to a
totally, especially with the parasail,
yeah.
that you can just like make it over to like one of them, and then it's not like as far as I can tell, like an interconnected world where once you're up there you can get to all of them. It really is like you're doing like a
they're
small
separate,
cluster,
yeah.
but that's where you can encounter like that has been useful because that's where those like zonai machines that
Yeah.
give that give you the toys that you can like the zonai like things that you can use in
Right,
the
the
world.
little Zonai
And
machines.
yeah, that's where you like get those, which I guess are like gachapon machines, like
Yeah.
from Japan. similar to the Kirby games where you can get little like figurines. Only this time you're getting like flamethrowers and
Yeah,
rockets
well,
and stuff.
and this time like duplicates are great. Where you're
Yes.
like, yeah, give me more flamethrowers, give me more rockets, give me more fans, whatever.
But also like there are shrines up there. There's just cool stuff, and that's where like the aesthetics of the Sky Island, at least from what I've seen so far, like I wish there's a little more diverse. I wish they were a little more interesting.
So far, they all seem like kind of autumnal, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty, but
yeah.
and not really present anywhere on the surface of Hyrule. So
Yeah, and so it's just kind of like, but I think the fact that they are small clusters, and so you generally I don't spend a lot of time up there. There's usually like a shrine. There's a thing that you usually one or two things that you like want to do, and then you're pretty much like done.
Yeah.
With the sky, that like cluster has been my experience anyways. But it's fun to see what is up there because there have been some surprising things that like I wasn't expecting. And there was one where I was just like, that was super fun. Like that was completely unexpected and like incredibly fun.
By the way, I sort of can't get over being up on a sky island, jumping down, and Hyrule just being there.
It is, I don't know how they do it, but it is remarkable.
And you can pass through Hyrule into the depths below, and there's seemingly no loading.
No, it's pretty crazy.
It just all happens.
Yeah.
And like I know that the textures here aren't nearly as detailed as like other games or whatever, but like how is this happening?
Yeah, it's so cool. You really take it for granted.
Yeah, totally.
But which is incredible. Like, yeah, they're like if you fast travel somewhere, there's loading,
or if you go inside a shrine.
Yeah, but otherwise,
no.
It's it's really cool.
So, I have the like you say, like following the story to a point, and sort of early on they're like, hey, you need to check out what's happening in each of the four like main the Rito village, the Gerudo village, the Zora, and the Goron. And they like usher you towards the Rito one first.
Yeah, everyone's like, hey, what's going on at the Rito village?
And you're like, okay, I get it. And so I headed off in that direction after, screwing around with shrines and stuff. And I have now completed that Rito chapter.
Okay, so I'm not that far yet. I am at the Rito village.
Yes.
And I'm at the point where I guess this will be spoilers for the Rito village.
light spoilers for the Rito village.
I'm at the point where I saw the like boat.
Okay.
And am just about to like use the top of the boat as a trampoline to go to the next part.
So okay. That's where like the approach to the end of this chapter sort of I mean, can I just
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I think I know what's coming.
So this is like the lead up to the you get to this arc, right? The ship that's in the air. That is functionally the first dungeon, right? In that it is like a self-contained little puzzle box, very similar in a lot of ways to what like the Divine Beasts were, but without the how the Divine Beasts all had this like gimmick of like moving pieces of them so that you could like access them, and this is not like that at all. It's like just built on like triggering a couple switches to like get into the next thing. But so have you done I forget where exactly you start jumping on the sails of those flying ships, but have you done this like really like perilous ascent into the sky?
Yeah, so because you're at the Rito village, you get pointed to this place with the two bonfires, right? And you go to the bonfire, and I got distracted there.
Oh yeah,
I was
me too.
I saw like a shrine, and I was like, I'm going to that shrine.
Yeah, peace
I
out,
got
guys.
to that shrine.
How are you doing with cold at this point? Because I did not have enough money to buy the clothes to keep me warm.
I was given, and now I'm trying to remember where I got it from. It was at a stable. I was given pants by a Rito, and who was at one of the stables being like, oh, you're going that way?
Just the cold weather pants, like
just the pants.
The snow quill pants.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, like you're going this way, it's like crazy cold here, like take this. I'm pretty sure that's where I got them. I didn't buy them. I didn't craft it. Like I didn't find it. Somebody gave an NPC gave it to me,
Yeah.
and so I haven't. I don't even think about it because it
Yeah.
protects me.
I didn't have anything headed up there, so I was like, again, slurping down sautéed peppers. But I had to go back because it like, and especially when you get further up, it's not just like cold, but like very
Oh,
cold. And I was like, I can't do this. I got to go back and
Oh,
like
got it.
sell some stuff so I can buy one piece of that the snow quill armor set from the merchant in the Rito village.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I guess maybe because I have it, I won't have to worry about that.
Again, just incredible that like you talked to the right person and
I
like
just happened
I
to, like,
didn't. Yeah.
Dude, can we talk about stables for a second?
Absolutely.
Because it's such a simple, like a small thing that makes complete sense that they did, and yet I did not expect it. And so when I learned it, it was such a delight. Is I got to my first stable near one, and that's where I saw wild horses for the first time. I was like, well, guess I better like capture one of these
Get a
horses
horse.
because I got to get a horse in this game. And so I capture the wild horse and I take it to the stable, and they're like, you don't have any room to put more horses.
And you're like, huh? How can this be?
My horses from Breath of the Wild are in this game.
So cool. I didn't put a lot of, or at least I didn't remember putting a lot of time into like getting horses in Breath of the Wild. I mostly got around by like flying, right? And but it was still like this surreal like bit of connection that they're like, oh yeah, all of your horses are here and they have all the stats they did before and all the names that they did before.
Yeah.
And Mark, I want to take you back to 2017 when I was playing Breath of the Wild originally, because the names of my horses are as follows: Rivers, Wilson, Sharp, Pinkerton. They're all named after either members of Weezer or Weezer Records.
Very good.
So this is where I was in 2017, and it's just like it's such a fun, weird reminder of like, oh yeah, this was the past, and this is what I was talking about with like putting the player in like Link's perspective of like the world has changed, and you're just trying to get a handle on like how it has changed. There are some things that are the same, and that are like part of your past, and like here it is, you can use it again. So like I caught a wild horse, but was like, oh, forget you, I'm gonna pull Sharp out because I guess I rode him a bunch
Right, yeah.
7 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's where I got the leg armor or like the leg outfit,
Oh, that's
the
so
snow quill
interesting.
stuff. So I haven't had to think about cold at all since I got that. And so, but yeah, I did do like
It is gonna get colder, just so you know.
right, yeah, and I have some
Peppers?
potions. What are they called?
Oh, sure, elixirs.
Elixirs, yeah, that should end some food that'll help me out with that. But yeah,
I'm very excited to hear your experience with this this first dungeon. It took me a pretty long time to figure it out. I was
and
sitting
is
on
it like a proper, not proper? You know what I'm asking? Like, is it like a Zelda dungeon, or does it still have that divine beast like DNA in it?
I would say it's closer to a divine beast, but like it has it as the divine beast did. It has its own map, you know. But like unlike the divine beasts, where the map was this like weird 3D thing that you're like rotating around, this is just like a sort of like classic kind of map. I feel like it does a good job of threading the needle between classic Zelda dungeon and the opposite of that. One reason that it can never really be a classic 3D Zelda dungeon is that there's no unique item that you
sure,
get in there.
you have to be able to do it at any time.
Yeah, exactly. But so what's the little bird's name that's flying around with you? I
Yeah,
forget
I'm blanking on it.
It's like something. His father's name is Tiba. His name is something else. But I love having this like team up ability with him where he can blow a gust of wind in a specific direction, and you can use that to like ride the gust of wind. And it's always along like a horizontal plane, so it's sort of a twist on the Rivali's Gale of like instead of shooting straight up, you can shoot like in a specific direction.
Yeah.
But I end up using him a lot in that dungeon, so it is a little bit like you do get a special ability that you then use to solve that dungeon, and it's definitely necessary to use that gust ability in that first
That makes sense.
dungeon.
It's
So.
just like Breath of the Wild, where in the lead up to that moment,
Totally, yeah,
it gives you what you need in order to do the dungeon, and that's how it doesn't matter in what order you do it.
yeah, yeah.
One thing that I am dying to know, and again, I'm not, looking at guides. I'm trying not to look at guides and all that kind of stuff for my playthrough this first time. But I am so interested in how other people are solving some of these shrines,
Yes,
because one of the great things about Ultra Hand, and again, that I learned on the Great Sky Island and kind of like retraining me how to play this game was, I was so fixated in the beginning on like how to get Ultra Hand working right.
mm.
And now I realize it doesn't matter.
There's no such thing. There's no
Like
such
you
thing
can
as right.
you
Yeah.
the game is forgiving enough that you can be imprecise, and it'll fuse itself together in a way that like works, or it doesn't work, but it's obvious why it's not working and what you need to do differently. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's not really looking for precision. And so that has been so freeing for me, because some of these shrines, I'm so curious what other solutions people come up with, because I feel like you said, the game makes you feel such like a genius for
Frequently,
figuring
yes.
it out. And so I have some of the jankiest like dumbest solutions.
So what I find so fascinating about that is like I feel the same way. I identify the same thing where I'm like, oh man, that shouldn't have worked, but it did. You also see, as I've been just inundated with Breath of the Wild like gameplay videos on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. That I saw someone posting about a shrine like, oh, this definitely wasn't the way I was supposed to solve this. And then like looking at it, I was like, that's how I solved it. I think that is how you're supposed to solve it. But that's like the mentality you always have,
Yeah.
where it's like, this can't possibly be what they want me to do. And then is it or isn't it? Like they want you to screw around with the tools and blunt force your way to the end.
Yeah, that is one of the cool things about it is, and it's true of Breath of the Wild as well. Is like, I don't know that there's a way that they want you to do it.
Right.
Again, it's just like,
It's not the Mandalorian here.
there's all these different, there are like some stuff in there, and some of the shrines require you to do certain things. Again, it's kind of like a training mechanism, but then other shrines are just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
Maybe there is like unintended way or a guided way, but
but it's almost always just get up there.
yeah, exactly.
You
and,
know?
and however you can do it,
However you
like,
can do it.
do it.
You got these cool powers, get up there and do it. All right. Do we have other things to say about like our gameplay experiences beyond what we've sort of talked about so far? We've hit the depths, we've hit the Sky Islands, we've hit running around like new versions of Hyrule.
Let's talk about the way that the story is like revealed to you
Yeah.
in this game, because it, in Breath of the Wild, you are recovering memories, so like Link is remembering more and more about what happened before
Yeah.
like 100 years ago.
100 years ago. Yeah.
But Tears of the Kingdom, the story is happening, like what is happening with Zelda, which is primarily, at least what I've seen of the cutscenes,
Yeah.
it's focused on like what Zelda's up to while you're doing this, is happening at the same time.
Experientially the same, like the same
Yeah,
amount of time has passed for Zelda as it has passed for Link.
Zelda is doing her things while you're doing yours,
Right.
wherever that's taking place.
Which, I mean, is this something that we can broach? Do we want to like talk about?
Well, I have one memory, and yeah,
as do I.
let's go ahead and
Okay.
it's the one that you get with Impa at the beginning. Is
I
that
think
right?
they're all with Impa.
Oh, got it.
But yeah, there's an Impa that the game sort of like, or the first point where you meet Impa, she is at one of these like drawings on the on the ground that is really only clear what it is from way up in the sky. So you like light a balloon and you fly up there with her, and you see that what's drawn on the ground is Rauru, this Zonai elder, the original king of Hyrule. And she's like, there's something down there. And I think you even know that they're tears at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so, I was like, okay, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go right to its eye, because where else would a tear be? And you pick this thing up, and then it is like you are triggered into, you are with Zelda, right? And being with Zelda means that you are in with the original founding of Hyrule.
Well, so in the first, that's what's like implied, and that's what I assume is happening in this first like thing that you're
Right.
experiencing.
Zelda has traveled back in time.
Yeah, Zelda's traveled back in time. Rauru and the Sophie. What is the
Yeah,
name
so
of the
yeah, it might be
um
Sonia
Sonia? So the like Rauru and Sonia.
sitting in a tree.
Because like Zelda shows up and is like, "I'm the princess of Hyrule," and they're like, "That's funny.
We just started a
yeah,
Hyrule.
and we're the king and queen." I also think like in each shrine at the end, you see these statues of people, and I'm assuming
Yeah.
it's them. I'm assuming it's
I'm assuming it's them.
Rauru and Sonia.
I'm assuming it's them too. I wonder if there's any like time shenanigans here, with like, is it Rauru and Zelda?
Oh,
She's
sure,
back in the
right.
past right now. Like,
Yeah.
who knows?
Right.
So there's something going on. So
Definitely something's behind those fallen boulders in the
we are
like
so
all
gonna
those
get back
murals
there,
at
yeah.
the beginning. But yeah, so it's just interesting because again, like Tears of the Kingdom, everything was happening in the past, but the storytelling this time, everything's happening together.
Still in the past,
but like
yeah.
it's all happening at this like
We have an active
in the
participant
moment.
in the past.
Yeah. And also Zelda's just showing up in Hyrule every now and then. Like
yes,
people see her and then she just like disappears.
well, and is it the Clover Gazette?
Yes, it is the I was just looking this up earlier because I was trying to remember the name.
There's a newspaper.
Like the Lucky Clover Gazette? Is that what it is?
It's something like that. Clover is in it for sure. I think Gazette is in it for sure.
Yeah, Lucky Clover Gazette.
The Lucky Clover Gazette. So there's a newspaper that's reporting on what's happening in Hyrule, and you get they've taken over one of the former stables, which is adorable, and you get like assignments from one of the editors there to or at least the first thing that they have you do is like go around to the other stables and see if people have stories about where they saw Zelda, because she's just appearing, in a puddle in outside someone's house, and you gotta like take interviews about it. And I followed up on one of these.
Oh,
so
so
far.
I haven't at all yet because it's like by the stables by the Rito Village. So I've encountered it,
Right.
and then I'm doing this thing now, but I haven't gone back to any of the stables.
Yeah, so you're sort of like paired up with this dude Penn. He is a Rito reporter who's kind of like a pelican,
and who is like the replacement for Cass. I don't know if Cass is in this game or not.
Interesting. Yeah,
But I mean,
I haven't seen him
it's
yet,
early
if
days,
he-
but I haven't run into Cass, and so I'm wondering if Penn is our like Cass equivalent for Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, maybe he has a specific role though, in that like he shows up at every stable that you go to and is sort of like your number two as you're investigating these like Zelda sightings. So I've done one of these, and there's like a fun little like mini story of like what Zelda did when she appeared, and like then you have to like do like a little fetch quest or whatever to follow up on it. And then Penn's like, all right, I'm going to go report that back. And then you have more of these to do and check in at other stables. But like, that's an example of a system that made itself, or like a gameplay thing that made itself apparent to me after playing for like 12 hours.
Yeah, totally. I mean, from the beginning, people are talking about the Lucky Clover Gazette.
Yep.
And again, they're kind of pointing you to the Rito Village as like, hey, this is your first place to go. What's up with the Lucky Clover Gazette? I know
Yes.
they've taken over a stable up there. Like the game is kind of ushering you in that direction. Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, like, what the next 5 hours will bring. What new thing
Right.
that like makes everything else in the rest of the world relevant in a new way I uncover everywhere I go.
And that's the thing. I have seen so little of the map.
I know. I've done 3 towers. 3
Yeah,
sky towers.
I think I've done 3 Sky Towers as well, and there's so much more that like now I'm like, hey, what's going on with Terrytown? What's up with Kakariko Village? Like, what's
Yep.
going on?
What's up with Hateno Village? What's
Yeah.
up with like, is Eventide Island still there?
Uh-huh.
Like the Akala laboratory, is that, what about those mazes? Are they still out
I
here?
know,
Like,
yeah.
there's so much of this world that I haven't seen again yet in this
Yeah.
context, and I know it's all changed. I know it's all different.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. There's the game is so massive, and we've played so little of it. And why are we wasting our time talking about it right now?
I mean, this
We could be
game
playing.
really does. It's kind of like fun because I was worried that it wouldn't recapture the magic of Breath of the Wild, and it 100% for me has recaptured
Yeah.
that magic. Where I am, if I'm not playing the game, I'm thinking about the game.
Yep.
I'm thinking about where I should go next, what I haven't been like, what I should be doing differently. It really has its hooks in me, and that is it's just so much fun to kind of like be back here.
Yeah. I mean, I got home from work today. Sarah and I made dinner, and then I was like, I didn't have a lot of time before I had to leave to come over here, and I was like, I'm gonna check in with my boy Link for 25 minutes before going over to Mark's. Played for like almost 40 and was like, I gotta go.
Have you been playing mostly on docked or in handheld mode, or what have you been
I've
doing?
been going back and forth.
Yeah.
The I do notice when I'm playing it docked that like there's just some of the like lower resolution of the game. Excuse me. Especially in the Sky Islands, that like the light just feels a little jagged. Um, but I don't notice that when I'm playing in handheld. Like I think just the size of the screen is small enough that like any of those imperfections are just sort of washed away. And of course that OLED screen is gorgeous. How about you? How have you been playing?
I've been playing it primarily handheld, which is different from I played Breath of the Wild like almost exclusively docked, but I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom. I played in the beginning, I played it docked, but mostly now I've been playing it handheld. And I think some of like I think you're right that the smaller screen helps. I do think it's less like it's less like pretty. I feel like in handheld mode because they like some of the effects and stuff get cut back.
Yeah, I think I think
So
that's
it's
right.
just a trade off, I think. But I've been
I mean, I think there's no bad way to play it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's I agree that I am playing more in handheld this time than I did originally playing Breath of the Wild. Yeah, but you know the beauty of this game and that game is that it's a flexible play it exactly how you want to. So you want to play a little bit in bed, you want to play a little bit while your significant other is watching TV. You can do that. You want to throw it up on the TV and take over the whole space. You can do that too. All right, Mark. One last thing I think that I want to just like kind of speculate on, talk a little bit about before we close out our initial impressions here is just sort of like the speculation about the future of this game. And I don't mean like the future of the Zelda series and whether we're going to like keep getting Breath of the Wild likes forever. I'm sure we'll get another one like this at some point. But kind of just like the DLC of it all, because we knew when Breath of the Wild was released that there was a season pass. You could buy it on the day that Zelda was released, and therefore the day the Switch was released. And it was like by the end of that same year that both chunks of it were out. Right? We don't have any kind of indication that there's going to be any DLC for this. That's a departure from what Nintendo's been doing with their big first party stuff lately. Do we think there will be, or like are they just sort of like waiting for everyone to discover how big this game is? Like
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah, I wonder because there have been examples in the past of the DLC for games being announced afterwards,
Uh-huh.
but I don't really. I honestly don't know, and I don't know that I have a good take on even what I expect to happen because, yeah, maybe it is that the game is so large that they, have done what they wanted to do.
Right. And they're like, we're already charging you $70.
Right. And maybe it's like stupid speculation on my part, but
Let's
it's
do it.
what I'm good for.
Mhm.
Maybe this time next year there's a new Switch or there's, some new Nintendo hardware. And so it doesn't make sense to have like the final Tears of the Kingdom DLC coming out around that same time. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't really know either. It's like there's every now and then there's that little like nagging thing of like, nah, I wish that like the Switch was a little bit like more powerful, that this game could be even like prettier than it is. Which again, like I don't really have any genuine complaints about the way it looks or the performance of the game, right? Like I think it's generally quite good, but it could be better. And like, yeah, would they do a like DLC pack that's like just for the next generation Switch version of it, or like only available when they put that, like I don't know. This game seems so big in itself, but also big in a cultural sense that like you have to imagine that they would want to hit another like beat of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like in a lot of ways, here's the real analog is Animal Crossing, right? We didn't know that there was going to be DLC for Animal Crossing when it came out. We knew that they were going to be updating it regularly with like the sort of like holiday stuff. So maybe that's different because we have not had anything like that for
that's
Tears
true.
of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
But like, is even that's a little strange. That's not even like, oh yeah, we'll be adding like updates for like new outfits or like dumb shirts or whatever. That there's just like they're just like they shipped the game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so complete and so big that they're just like, no, this this is it. No other steps. So I still think we're probably not going to see a new Switch until 2025. I'm going to stake my claim on that one.
I
Mark,
mean, every day you seem to be more and more correct.
every day, and I started saying this, I think, 3 years ago. All right. Final thoughts about your first early impressions.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. I mean, honestly, I'm just so excited to get back to playing it
Yeah.
and discovering more about what this game has to offer. All of my concerns pre-release have been are withdrawn.
Yeah.
I'm
What about your concerns like 3 hours after release?
Yeah, even like my concerns once I got off of the Great Sky Island and I hit Hyrule again and
Touch grass. Touch grass.
Yeah, as soon as I touched grass on Hyrule and I kind of like the possibilities opened itself up to me. It's just been a blast. I'm just having so much fun. How about you?
Yeah, no, I mean it's absolutely the same. I just like the one thing that I want to add was I love the sort of like open, do what you want, self-guided experience of the world. And I'm excited to be like back in that mode now. Doing the chapter of the Rito Village was also like exhilarating and fun, and I loved it. And I like how much it makes you like apply your knowledge of the physics of the world and just the space of the world to tackle like a linear challenge. It's just mind-boggling to me that get yourself a man who can do both, right? And like Tears of the Kingdom is that man.
Full package.
It's the full package. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Would love to hear everyone else's early impressions, but get in that Discord and share them there, or email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.